okay, we're back on LinkedIn. I got Mark Jackson, my brother from another mother, with our LA Best crew. And Mark and I go way back. We worked on a task force together for years, and we've been following each other in the private sector. Mark just landed a great job. And when I saw that, I was like, we got to talk about this stuff. And Mark, you and I have been in some crazy situations together, chasing
Yes,
smugglers
sir.
up and down the coast of Los Angeles and
Yes,
California.
sir.
And I want to get from you some of the things that we were just talking about in regards to your transition, and some of not everybody's transition is like, I rolled out of a 20-year career in law enforcement and now I'm in another 20-year career with X company.
Mhm.
You, like me, we've worked in different places and we've been consultants and we've been investigators, and but there's some things that you've learned along the way, and I want to pull that out and kind of go deep into that. But something that we were just talking about really touched me, and you're talking about the emotional aspect of transitioning law enforcement. A lot of people, we don't talk about that. We should talk a lot about this a lot more.
Yep,
But
yep.
that's a challenge. It was a challenge for me, and I know it was a challenge for you. But can you give us some more about that? What was the challenge, and then how did you overcome it? What are some of those things that you experienced?
Yeah. And what I had said previously is that, this piece or this portion of our conversation, this is set aside for those of us that were passionate about law enforcement, that put ourselves knowingly in harm's way to serve our communities. Some of us come from military backgrounds and we transitioned into law enforcement, like myself, Marine Corps, then Sheriff's Department, and in the last 8 years with the task force. I had a passion for what I did. I didn't want to promote because I wanted to chase bad guys my entire career. With that being said, I was allowed some very cool positions, some very cool jobs where I got to wear earrings and flip flops and shorts, as Scott, you very well remember.
Yeah, we did.
So with that, I thought that I was able to actually separate myself when I came home at night, and I was Mark Jackson when I came home, and then I was a Rock'em Sock'em Robot when I was on duty. But when it came time to pull the plug, what I didn't realize was the emotional side of no longer chasing bad guys, no longer feeling like I was contributing or serving my community. So, with that being said, there were moments for the first 6 months of my retirement, Scott, where my wife could be talking about making meatloaf. She could be talking about going down to Hobby Lobby. And all of a sudden, I would burst into tears. And I didn't understand what was going on with me. I didn't understand why I was emotional, but I was on the verge of tears a lot of the time for the 6 months post retirement. With that being said, I had to kind of find my space again. I had to get my footing again and get back to being Mark Jackson the person instead of Mark Jackson the cop, you know, and then transferring what I had and what I've learned and all those things into law enforcement. But it's not just I report it here Monday, now I'm going to report there on Friday. It's just not that simple. And you have to consider, what is it, the fifth man. You got to consider the fifth man. And that is the emotional side of the separation from law enforcement to the private sector. So,
Yeah, and I think that's something a lot of people who've been watching this series and watching us talk, they're good. If they haven't experienced it, they will. And
mhm,
I think the biggest thing for me was I had to identify new team players that
mhm,
would have my back and would help me learn about the private sector. And when we were on task force, we had SCB guys with us, we had CBP guys with us. Every agency was represented, so any ask that we needed, we had. And when you're in the private sector, you're a little bit alone,
yeah,
and you're kind of the lone ranger until you can figure out, like, oh, I can trust that person even though they don't have an LAPD badge on.
Right.
I can trust them. They've earned my trust. I've earned their trust, right? So we'll find it in the private sector. It just takes some time, and it takes some knowledge. You said something that was really resonant with me earlier, that every time you see a young deputy, you tell them something. What do you try and tell them? What do you try and impart that wisdom? That
Yeah.
you're the grandfather now. You're the granddaddy. You've been around. What do
Yeah,
you impart on
I'm
them?
an OG now, Scott. I'm an older
Yes, right.
guy. Yeah, man. I had one of my guru sergeants, Doug Federal. As I was preparing to retire, I went to Doug just for some advice, like I did throughout my entire career. And he said, "So what are you finding, Jack?" Everybody called me Jack. "So what are you finding out there, Jack? What's next, man?" I said, "Well, it's tough. It's tough. I'm not getting any hits. Nobody's responding. Nobody's following up with my applications. I don't know what's going on." He says, "Let me tell you, brother." He says, "The one thing you'll find out that we're best suited for post retirement is limo drivers and security guards." So, and
Yep.
again, this is, like I said before, this is not to knock limo drivers and security guards. It's just that
Right.
when you've got a 30-year body of work, your expectations are just a little different, you know. And I expected people to come knocking on my door, and Scott, it just didn't happen. I had to actually go knocking on doors. So
You had to
it's
work.
humbling,
You had to
man. It's
hustle.
humbling. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's great. And we're going to pause it there because I definitely want to invite people to talk with us in the comments below, ask us questions, and we're going to have some more conversation with you. But this is really what we're trying to do is teach people that it didn't go perfect for me. It didn't go perfect for you in transition. You're going to run into some stumbling blocks, but those can be overcome through our relationships, through our understanding, through certification and education. So we're going to talk about that next, and want people to stay tuned to what you got to say.
Awesome.
All right, back with Mark Jackson. We are going to talk about resumes and interviews and the processes that you've seen. What are some of the challenges and some of the good things and some of the bad things? I want to explore all of those things. You're a hiring manager. You've hired people in law enforcement, coming out of law enforcement. What are some of the things you like to see? What's the advice that you would give to any one of your brothers or sisters coming from LASD? What are some of those things that they can do to be successful?
Well, what I like to see, Scott, is I like to see, you know, uh, troops that have gone after it in their career. Um, and that's I can't be like completely specific and say, yeah, you need to have gone to major crimes. You need to have gone to a task force. I'm simply saying that I would love to see people that have put themselves in a position to where they can actually make decisions. They can show their leadership ability and their skills, not just a part of a pool of people, where you kind of hide amongst the other sheepdogs and, whatever you want to call them. But,
Yeah.
just people that have gotten or put themselves in positions, have sought after positions where, they're able to stand out. And, those are the types of positions that you're going to take the arrows, you know.
Yeah.
But I think those arrows are what make you who you ultimately become, and that's a
Mhm.
leader. So with that being said, I want leaders. I want to look at your resume and feel confident. And there are certain resumes that you look at and immediately that's not somebody you're interested in. Um, I honestly, and this is no fluff for the camera. This is just I think resumes speak to me. It's almost like an audible language
Agreed.
I hear as I'm reading. I can hear the voice of the person that's whose resume it belongs to. And if it doesn't appeal to me, it's like, okay, there's something missing here. This seems
Hmm.
like a lot of fluff here. And also, last but not least, I like resumes that are to the point.
Yeah.
You know, I can put on there that I've got my certificate in Chinese checkers, back in junior high, and I was the soccer captain in, high school. That's all well and good. But again, keep it concise, keep it directly to the point. And last but not least, a piece of advice that was given to me is for each position, there has to be some sort of form fitting, that you have to do, which means you might have to tweak your resume. You can't be lazy about your resume submission.
Just
You've got to.
shotgun it out, same resume for every job. Don't do that,
Exactly.
right?
This is not a, what do you call, a boiler point type.
Boilerplate, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Or the
boilerplate.
FBI calls a pony. You
Yeah.
don't just have a pony resume. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I always tell people,
No.
look for the keywords in the position description, pull those out, and if they fit, right, if you're being honest, put them in there. One of the things that I've heard when I talk about how you describe your experience in your resume. I've talked with people who will put like every position that they've ever had, all the way up to lieutenant or captain or whatever. And I try to get them to shorten it up. Hey, you're applying for a security director role. Get that leadership stuff out of your resume and or into your resume and make that really tight and concise. And they say, well, I did that other stuff. And I'm like, I hear you, but to your point about hearing it speak to you, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I can look at usually the first page of a resume, and I can be automatically like, uh-oh, we're going to have some challenges here. I need to look deeper into what this person maybe did and extrapolate, knowing that one of the things that people don't know coming out of the military or law enforcement is how to write a resume that the private sector understands.
Right.
And on that, when you're interviewing people that have those very similar experiences, what do you find as a challenge for folks coming from the public sector or from government into the private sector once hopefully we get them past the resume stage and now they're in the interview stage? What kind of things are you seeing as a challenge for them, or any advice that you would have for them on the interview side?
Yeah. Just tailoring your past experiences to the question,
Okay.
marrying the two. I could probably fill up, 3 or 4 pages of resume, on all the jobs I've had from starting at the Marine Corps moving forward. But when you're talking about filling a position, I'm just not sure if, the fry guy at McDonald's,
That's
if
right.
that is really going to, you know what I mean? So just making sure that, and let me tell you this, Scott, with Sodexo, what they allowed me to do, because the questions were multi-tiered, every question had 3 different aspects to it. So what I was very appreciative of is they made it very clear to me right from the start. You can take notes. Thank God.
Ah,
Thank
wow.
God. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's
Because
great.
because we're not here to trick you. We want you, you know. And also we want to get this past us.
Mm.
We want to, if you're the guy, we want to get you on board as quickly as possible, right? So we're not going to try and stumble you or trick you or come through the side door on you. You didn't answer this part, fail on that question.
Gotcha.
No, we want to
Yeah.
hear what your answer is. So with that being said, if you want to take notes, you can take notes. And I was very appreciative of that, and I was able to hit all points. That is now something that moving forward, I will make sure that
Mhm.
I insert in all interviews as well that are multi-tiered questions.
Did you have panel interviews in the private sector? I know some companies that are more formal, they'll do like a panel of, 2 or 3 people. Usually not people that you're used to seeing, in law enforcement. We're used to like, oh, I'm going to be interviewed by probably a line officer and then like a sergeant and then like a lieutenant. You've got kind of all different hierarchies and maybe somebody from HR.
Yeah.
But in the private sector, for me, it was, oh, here's somebody from procurement. I didn't even know what procurement was, man. And I had somebody from human resources, and I had people from the business unit, like they were in sales or they were in marketing or in operations. I had no idea what they did or
Yeah.
how to talk to them. Because what
Right.
do we know as investigators? We like to know who we're talking to, right?
Right,
I didn't
brother.
have that, so
Yeah.
I don't know if you had the same experience or if you had a panel or how did they do that?
Yeah, it was panels. I went through a series of 2 interviews. Each one had 3 different interviewers on
And
there.
not security people, probably, right? Not people with
No,
similar
no,
background.
And it's what you said before. They were all attorneys, all from different, different expertise in that, line of business. So with that being said, their questions were coming from a lot of different places where I'm like, wow, I never considered that, from that perspective on how to answer that. So it was it caused me to stretch. It caused me to take a moment. Um, I'm from a place, Scott. I'm a confident guy, confident based on attitude, that I've done throughout my life. But the one thing that I've always felt, and again, perspective is, or excuse me, how you see me is everything. But I've always felt like I interview well. I always felt like I testify well. So in going into this interview process with Sodexo, it shook me. It
Interesting.
shook me.
Well,
Yeah.
how do you build rapport when you're the one who's getting asked questions,
Yeah.
right? We're used to being on the other side as investigators,
Exactly,
man.
man. Yeah, yeah, it's a humbling experience, and I came out of each series, well, both sections of the interview process. I came out taking a deep breath and pulling my tie off and saying, "Wow,
Yeah.
yeah, that
They don't
beat me
mess
up a little
around.
bit."
Yeah,
Yeah,
you got to
yeah,
be
so
ready, and I think I'm sure you had to understand their culture a little bit, and you had to try and build rapport with them by being your authentic self. I'm,
yes,
I'm sure that
yeah,
was a component of
yeah,
it too.
yeah.
Um, Mark, great conversations. I really appreciate what you've done. Obviously, you know how much I think of you. We've worked cases together, and
Yep,
we've done a lot of really fun things. And I am so appreciative that you wanted to talk with me about this, as well as super excited for your new role. And I know that you're going to do amazing things. You are a true leader out there. We need more folks like yourself out there because you're so humble. And I really, really appreciate the conversation that we're having. And I know that we're going to help folks. And I want people to post this and to share this as much as possible. Help me and help Mark get the word out there. We want to help our brothers and sisters
absolutely.
do a successful transition. So I appreciate you, Mark, and I wish you happy holidays and a happy new year if we don't talk again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. Love you, brother.
Love you too, brother.